She scrubbed his floors for 10 years to pay a debt he never knew she owed. Margaret Chen was 34 years old, a widow, and the quietest woman in all of Greenwich, Connecticut. She kept her head down, humming old hymns while she dusted the tall windows of the Hayes estate, raising her son David alone on a small income that barely covered their rent. 6 months earlier, William Hayes had hired her through an agency, never asking many questions. Margaret never spoke about her past, wore a thin gold locket under her collar, and always kept her sleeves buttoned even in summer. The other staff whispered that she seemed afraid of something, flinching every time Vanessa Cole walked into the room. William's 8-year-old daughter Lily adored her, saying Margaret's hands felt like her grandmother's used to. Nobody understood why this woman with the kind eyes and trembling hands carried such a heavy weight. But the truth, hidden for 11 years, was about to tear through the Hayes estate like a storm. Vanessa Cole was 30 years old, beautiful, and used to getting her way. From the day she moved into the Hayes estate, she treated Margaret like she was invisible, snapping her fingers, leaving messes on purpose, correcting Margaret's English in front of guests just to watch her shrink. Little Lily noticed everything, one evening seeing Vanessa knock a vase off a shelf and blame Margaret for it in front of William. Lily tugged her father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, that's not fair." William frowned but said nothing, too busy distracted planning the biggest party of his life. He had no idea that the woman mopping his marble floors was about to change everything he thought he knew about his own past. The night of the engagement party arrived and Vanessa wanted it perfect, wanting the Greenwich elite to see her as the next Mrs. Hayes. She gave Margaret a long list of impossible tasks and warned her one mistake and you are gone. Halfway through the evening a caterer bumped a tray and red wine splashed across the hem of Vanessa's white gown. Vanessa spun around and pointed straight at Margaret, though Margaret had been standing 10 feet away. She did this on purpose, Vanessa announced to the room. Guests turned to stare. William opened his mouth to defend Margaret then hesitated, torn between his fiancée and his conscience. That hesitation would haunt him. Vanessa stepped closer, grabbed Margaret's collar, and yanked hard. The seam tore straight across her shoulder. The room went completely silent because underneath the torn fabric was a scar shaped like a crescent moon, exactly where surgeons cut to reach the bone marrow beneath the collarbone. William's knees nearly gave out. 11 years earlier, before he built his fortune, William had been a sick young man in a hospital bed dying of leukemia. A stranger, an anonymous donor whose name the hospital never released, had matched his bone marrow and saved his life. He had spent years afterward trying to find that donor, writing letters through the hospital, begging for a name, always told the same thing, she wished to remain anonymous. He had built a foundation in her honor, never stopping to wonder about the stranger who gave him a second chance. Now he stood in his own ballroom, staring at that same crescent scar on his housekeeper's shoulder. His voice cracked as he whispered, "It is you. You are the one who saved my life." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, her smile disappearing as she looked around at the guests staring at her, at the torn uniform still in her hand. She finally spoke the words she had hidden for 11 years. "I never wanted you to feel like you owed me anything." But William was already moving toward her, and the room was about to learn the truth that would break every heart in it. William took Margaret's hands in front of everyone and asked why she never told him. Margaret's voice shook as she explained. She had been a young hospital volunteer back then, barely getting by, and after the surgery, medical debt from her own complications had swallowed everything she owned. She lost her apartment, lost contact with the family she had quietly saved. Years later, desperate for work, she had taken a housekeeping job through an agency, never imagining it would lead her back to the very man whose life she had given part of herself to save. She kept quiet because she did not want gratitude, she just wanted to survive and raise her son with dignity. William turned to Vanessa, his voice steady now instead of shaking. "You tore the uniform off the woman who gave me 11 more years of life," he said. 11 years I used to build everything you have been enjoying." Vanessa stammered an apology, but William shook his head slowly, removing the engagement ring from her finger himself, gently but firmly, and said the engagement was over. Vanessa left the mansion that night in silence, and this time nobody stopped her. What happened next was something none of the guests forgot. William knelt down, not to Vanessa, but in front of Margaret, right there on the ballroom floor, and thanked her the way he had wanted to for 11 long years. Little Lily ran up and wrapped her arms around Margaret's waist, refusing to let go, whispering, "I knew you were special." William insisted on paying off every debt Margaret had carried since that surgery, not as charity, but as a debt finally repaid. He gave her son David a full college scholarship. In the months that followed, Margaret never wore the housekeeper's uniform again, becoming something the whole town noticed, a woman finally seen, finally thanked, finally home. William and Lily started spending every Sunday at Margaret's small kitchen table, sharing meals that meant more to them than any ballroom ever had. The scar that Vanessa tried to use as a weapon of cruelty became instead the mark that brought a real family together, and sometimes, the smallest kindness hidden for 11 quiet years is the very thing that saves us twice. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos.